Do you know what?
Quick.
I have missed these chats.
Anyway.
Right.
Good to be back.
Right. Okay. I suppose I better introduce it then, hadn't I?
Happens at the start.
Right. Carol by Patricia Highsmith. Hello and welcome to Season 2 of Here Read This, featuring one book, 4 hosts, and lots of interesting bookish chat. And yeah, we hope, and someone hitting their microphone, so sorry about that, we're already off to a good start. So we've slightly changed the format, as you might have guessed by the different introduction there, because we thought perhaps in our old format in Season 1, the discussion had started to get a little bit too lengthy, so we've slimmed it down a bit. It also means it's a bit quicker for us, because we've got very busy lives at the moment, so we're now just reading one book a month for Here Read This specifically, although we'll be discussing that one book with you, but we'll also be talking in the middle about the other things that we're reading, because we're doubtless all reading something else as well, and then we'll be coming back to the main book of the month for some chat with spoilers towards the end of the podcast, and also revealing what we'll be reading next month. So I hope that makes sense. So starting off with some non-spoilery chat, then what else we've been reading, then for some spoilery chat at the end. Okay.
Well done, Kate. Do you know what? Well done to
you.
Yeah.
That's not too bad. So joining me, I'm Kate. Joining me today are Rob.
Hello.
Of Adventures with Words, my Adventures with Words co-host. Also joining us are Gav.
Hello.
Of anything in particular at the moment, Gav, or just of Gav?
An unreliable reader.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And Simon of, at the moment,
Savage Reads and the Readers.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Simon. So, our book this month is Carol, which was chosen by public vote because we thought as we were coming back again, we would let you guys choose. And that was my choice, hence me hosting. I was sort of partly inspired by having gone to see the film version, which I very much enjoyed before Christmas, starring Kate Blanchett and Rooney Mara, which I thought was absolutely wonderful. And the original book was called, actually not Carol, but The Price of Salt. It's now being published as Carol. Written wonderfully by Patricia Highsmith, who you might know better as a writer of thrillers and murder mysteries. But so this is something that's maybe quite different to what we would expect by her. And I was quite pleasantly surprised, but perhaps we'll go around quickly and sort of give just a very brief reaction, and then I'll go into a bit more detail about what it's about. So, Rob, a very quick, brief thought from you?
I very much enjoyed it. I'd seen the film first, which is something I don't normally do, but I'd also read The Talented Mr. Ripley, but I really enjoyed it.
Okay. Gav, what did you think?
I thought from the opening I was going to hate it because it was really cringeworthy and awkward, and then I loved it.
Oh, very interesting. Simon, what did you think?
I didn't know what to expect with this one because I've been told by lots and lots of people to read it because it's the one that she did with the pseudonym. And I only started reading it last year when I read Deep Water, and I loved that. So this was very different, but I loved it for how different it was.
Okay, very interesting. So, to go a bit more into the background of the story and also the fact that this was published with the title The Price of Salt. It was also published pseudonymously. Pseudonymously?
That's sort of a word, yeah.
Yeah, something like that. So, this is the story. So the two main characters are Therese and Carol. Therese is an ordinary sales assistant. She's working in a New York department store when a beautiful, alluring woman in her 30s walks up to the counter where she's working. And this is a really busy time just before Christmas. Standing there, Therese is wholly unprepared for the first shock of love. Therese is an awkward 19-year-old with a job that she hates and a boyfriend who she doesn't love. Carol is a sophisticated, bored, suburban housewife in the throes of a divorce and a custody battle for her only daughter. As Therese becomes irresistibly drawn into Carol's world, she soon realises how much they both stand to lose. So that's kind of just a very quick plot summary, if you like. And I guess to put it into context, this was written in 1952. So I guess you can understand why perhaps this was written with a pseudonym. And interestingly, the edition that I've got, which is the film tie-in, which perhaps I wouldn't normally have bought, but I didn't mind because I think Cate Blanchett and Rooney Mara look absolutely beautiful on the jacket. It actually has an afterword from Patricia Highsmith, which kind of explains a little bit about why it was published pseudonymously. But her usual publisher, who published her sort of thriller novels, didn't want to publish it with her name on it. And so it was published under a different name, not as Patricia Highsmith, and published as The Price of Salt by a different publisher. But it sold incredibly well, actually. And yeah, Harper wouldn't publish it. It was, she was called Claire Morgan instead of Patricia Highsmith on the cover, which is interesting. But yeah, she had loads of fan letters, loads of people writing to her because no one else had written about two women falling in love with each other. Nowhere in the book does it use the word, I don't think it uses the word lesbian anywhere in the book, but this is definitely a book about two women who fall in love with each other. And Carol, also, there's another woman who appears, and she's referred to as her best friend, but it's obvious that Carol and another woman have had a relationship as well. So I don't think that's a big spoiler to say. It's, that's definitely in there. So just thought that was really, really interesting. And yeah, I guess I'll leave it there. And if anyone else would like to kind of jump in and start off and make a point, that would be lovely.
Go on, Rob.
Me? Right. Okay, so I've got to remember not to try and spoil anything till afterwards, haven't I?
Yes.
So, I'm trying to think now, where's the safest point we can go up to? So this was my second Patricia Highsmith. The first one was Talented Mr. Ripley, so I didn't quite know what to expect other than I knew it was going to be slightly different to her thriller writing. So as I was reading it, because I did read it very close to watching the film, all the way through I did have the two actresses in my head the whole time. So I guess I'm kind of comparing it to the film, but I say it's a testament to it that it's still held up to something that I'd seen very recently. I thought it was incredibly moving. It still kept me on the edge of my seat, even though I knew what was going to happen, which is a nice thing. And it does differ slightly, which kind of threw me out at times. But I have to say, I thought it was wonderfully written, and I really still enjoyed it. I was still very moved by it all. I think that's all I can say for now, until we get back to the end. Anyone else?
Well, I was really surprised with it because having read all of one of the book.
Oh yeah, a bit like me, yeah.
But also having heard about, because she's so known, Patricia Highsmith, as being this, thriller writer. And I have to say, I've seen The Talented Mr. Ripley, but I've never read the book. So in my head, I feel like I know that story, even though I probably don't know it as well as the book will deal to it, because they're going to be different like the films are with these two, I'm imagining. But I haven't seen the movie. So I went into it kind of completely with nothing other than lots of other people's praise for how great a novel it was. And I have to say, at first, I found it a bit clunky and slow, which I was a little bit surprised at. But then what I think is really clever is, as it goes on, and I don't know whether, because it was only her second novel, I think.
Yeah.
But I think what's fascinating about it is because I know her as a thriller writer, I was second guessing everything she did. So because when you're reading it, it is a little bit of a case of, Therese is it Therese or Therese? And I got really
I say
confused with that.
Therese.
I'm just going for Terry.
Okay, yeah.
Her boyfriend calls her Terry,
Yeah.
which is why I don't, because I
Okay.
don't like Richard. Ugh.
No, I don't know.
I think it's Therese. In the film, it's Therese.
Carol calls her Therese.
We'll go with Carol.
We'll go with Carol, because Carol knows pretty well by the end of it. Anyway, so Therese, what I find is fascinating is there's slight mingling of you feeling like she's obsessed with her. But then actually, when you read it, you're kind of like, well, actually, is Carol as equally obsessed? And also, as it goes on, without giving any spoilers, because Carol becomes this sort of enigma, even though she's so present in the novel, that I found really thrilling. And then what I liked is that when the sort of, I think there's clearly two halves of the book, and even there are two parts of the book, but the differences are very apparent. But in the second half, there's certain red herrings she drops in that make you think the book's going to take a very different turn, but actually it takes a completely different turn from that. It's really hard to do this book in the non-spoiler section. This was a bad idea.
It is very difficult, actually.
But I thought what I loved about it was I really felt like the whole era came to life.
Yeah.
I think what I found so interesting was the way that they looked at how... I mean, Therese, when it starts, does not identify as a lesbian. And I also think that's why the word isn't used in the book, because both of them have these separate lives. But I think what I found fascinating is how daunting that must have been. And yet what's interesting is Therese is not threatened by it until sort of it starts to go on. At first she's just excited by it, and then it's once she realises what other people's perceptions might be. I think all that kind of came to the fore as it went on, and I found that quite... it's a very evocative novel, I think, both in terms of time and place, but also in terms of people's attitudes and how society was towards things. Sorry, I went a bit deep.
No, I think that's just right. Sorry, Gav, carry on.
It is set in New York, and it is set in sort of... Even though she starts off behind a counter, it's not a spoiler to say that she wants to be something else, and she wants to... be a set designer, and it's interesting how arty it gets in places and how real that art plays against. So how the realness of her relationship and sort of the groundedness of Carol plays against the sort of art and the actress and her attitude towards people as well. I didn't like. I'm going to call her Terry because I'm going to get it wrong. I didn't like Terry at the start because I just wanted to give her a slap.
But I think that's fascinating because the whole way through, regardless of what happens and what doesn't happen, again, because I'm thinking of spoilers now, but you have moments where you dislike both.
Definitely.
Yeah. Well, also, I think Carol's just slightly fascinated with her. She calls her this strange girl flung out of space.
Angel flung out of space.
That's she's quite fascinated by Therese as well, and Therese, I think, struggles to fit in sometimes, and I think so. There's kind of, Therese, she's got her arty side, and she's designing sets, and I think she's sort of secretly thinking about, she's trying to avoid going to Europe with Richard, and so she's obviously thinking about change, and I think it's just the way those two sort of found each other.
Because we should say, shouldn't we, that Carol's in sort of an unhappy marriage.
She's divorcing, isn't she?
And and then Therese is with Richard. And this is where I found her annoying to start with, and I don't know if this is what you meant. Or was it Rob or Gav who said they found her annoying? Both.
I found her annoying.
That was it. Because she's quite ineffectual with Richard. Initially.
Yeah, she's
a bit like, well, I'm just with him.
But she's not the most reliable narrator. No, that's not a spoiler. She is not the best teller of a story. She doesn't.
Well, no, she is a good teller of a story, but we're not sure how true the story is.
Yeah,
that's clearer. Yeah, because she gives you the wrong impression, perhaps either on purpose or not, depending on.
But then I think that's that may be what she actually feels. That I think. And that changes from day to day. That's the other thing, which is true. The way you feel about someone does change from day to day, which might be why she sticks with him. She's with him. She doesn't love him, but then sometimes she likes him more than at other times. And I think probably most people have been in a relationship with someone a bit like that. Maybe not everyone, but where you're at that point, well, like, to be honest, I probably don't want to be with them that much, but it's probably more effort to bin them off than it is to stick with them.
But
so also, I'll put up with them for a bit longer. They're not dreadful. It's all right. But then actually what she finds is that she does meet someone who actually is amazing, but then that's even more scary because the person that she meets is someone that she would have never expected to feel that way about. So then there's a whole nother kind of set of things that she has to process. And obviously the person that she would normally talk to is this guy who, you know, obviously has no kind of concept of what she's trying to think about, so she can't talk to him about it. There's a very interesting conversation that she tries to have with him, which is kind of almost funny and then also very embarrassing and awkward.
Is that when they're flying the kite and she's trying to ask him, was he aware of people who fall in love with same sex?
Yeah.
And he's kind of heard of them.
But, yeah, which is sort of...
They're like a mythical beast.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's heard of them. And then lets the kite go.
Yeah, but then I think my main... I don't know, the main thing about it was interesting when you were talking about that almost like there were red herrings and you're kind of second guessing, because I think there is so much about Carol, the book, for me, that is to do with the atmosphere, actually. And yeah, Therese isn't necessarily a reliable narrator, and it's almost like the lack of things, like sometimes things aren't mentioned, the way that things are described, or in fact not completely described sometimes. There was one thing that really stood out for me. There's a point where Therese and Carol go on a drive to Carol's house and they stop and I think they're like outside Carol's house, and there are a load of bushes covered up by sacking, and it's written that they remind Therese of something, but she can't work out what, and that's all it says. And for some reason that really tickled me. I just really liked the fact that it just left it at that you're so much in her head, you're so much kind of at her mercy as a narrator, that all you get told is that it reminded her of something.
Because that's how much she's put you in that character. But the one bit, and this is no spoiler to say any of this, the bit that I found brilliant was how Patricia Highsmith, when Carol and Therese first meet each other, it's just in a department store where Therese is working, and it's how Patricia Highsmith writes about the eye contact. I thought that was absolutely fantastic, because they don't say anything to each other particularly. It's all very mundane and it's about a doll, but there's so much else going on. Yeah. And I don't think I've read a scene like that where it's all the unsaid stuff that's so at the fore without her actually having to do too much of she puts it in your head so easily. I can't describe it. I've not read a passage like that before. Yeah, it's so intense.
Even though, as you say, it's not necessarily very fast-paced, it's not necessarily that much actually happening. It's so much about just observation and picking out tiny details and what you see and what you hear, and just, setting that scene that it's really electric, actually. And I think I do agree, it's not necessarily a very fast pace as you're reading through, but there's so much that actually is important. And then, funnily enough, as you carry on, there are things from earlier that are recalled and that are important, I think. So, yeah, I really thought it worked. And I think it does. Actually, I think maybe the pace does pick up a bit as it goes on. As
definitely does.
Things become a bit more dramatic.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's the film with Glenn Close and the bunny?
Yeah.
See, this book has, if it was a thriller, it would, and the reaction had been slightly different. I think Terry could have turned into Glenn Close. There is that edge of obsession.
I disagree on that one,
because it's not like that. It's
Terry seems quite gentle
to
me.
She has there's clearly an obsession, but I think when we have our first, we'll all remember this, when you have your first crush, whoever it's on, there is this intensity around that, and that's like obsession. You want to see them all the time. And again, that was what I thought Patricia Highsmith wrote that brilliant. And actually, I do think the novel has a pulse of a thriller in some way, and I can't quite describe how, because you want to read on regardless, even though it isn't a page turner and there isn't a cliffhanger at the end of every chapter, but it's got its own propulsion that keeps it going, and you kind of, and I think she just covers the thriller elements hugely in the kind of lust / crush / you know, all the baggage that they've both got, which is why, yes, it was slow for me, but actually weirdly, I was thinking of the time that the book was written, and that wouldn't seem slow to people then.
No.
And actually, I bet you people were reading on fast because they wanted to get to what might or might not happen.
Well,
so it went on. But I think I found that really interesting because, and it's interesting, Gav, that you said that initially you weren't sure. I wasn't sure you were going to like it, Gav, because I was thinking, is there enough in here to keep his interest piqued?
Is it a woman standing at the counter thinking about what would have been?
Yeah.
Going for a long walk to the shops.
Well, no, she's already in the shop. She's watching the life walk out the door.
She's got to the shops already.
Missed out the walk, yeah.
And that's the thing. This is the sort of, there is that what if element. What if she hadn't have done what she did when Carol walked out the door?
She didn't send her a letter. You know what I mean? Things like that.
Well, no, it's even before then, isn't it? There's a bit where she's, you know, I try not to spoil it because it's a nice moment, but there's a bit where, you know, she's given a choice of sort of follow the woman out the shop or not, and that's the point. And then it's the bravery of the next bit of the things she does, and it's the bravery, like, you know, Terry is such a brave character. She doesn't reflect herself as being brave because she's innocent of it, or her obsession has overridden any sense because she's quite happy. But then again, Rich is quite obsessional with her. If you think about the relationship,
oh yeah, absolutely.
He likes the fact that he's trying to get a reaction out of her that's more than sort of, yeah, then we'll go for a walk. You know, he wants to see if he can charm her.
But also, the characters kind of around them, both with Carol and with Therese, the two men on either side of them are very manipulative. As you read on, and that was where, again, I thought something else might happen. And I'm not going to say what I thought until we talk about the next bit, but I thought something could happen there because, and it might do, because the way she describes them, actually, Richard is incredibly obsessive about Therese, I think.
Yeah, he's quite an odd character, actually, I think. He's quite strange because he's this kind of weird... Yeah, he just won't give up, will he? He is the stain that will not shift. I don't...
Well, he tries to blackmail her with his family.
Oh God, yeah.
All sorts of things like that. He's trying to get into bed. Most, you know,
he's just really weird.
He's not just trying to get into bed. He's got her into bed, and it hasn't been very fruitful. Well, not for her.
That's kind of a spoiler.
Yeah.
That's not a spoiler. That's mentioned quite early on, though.
Yeah. Well, I'd say it's just creepy. Yeah, it's just really, really creepy. I don't know. I think and this kind of reflects what we were saying earlier about at what point is it more hassle to stay with the person than to bin them off. And it is a bit weird, perhaps, that she hasn't already decided to bin him off. You know, but then that's our point of view now, over 60 years later, and I think that's a really important thing to remember, that we are reading it a lot later, and it's a lot easier for us to say that now, whereas at the time, it's not so easy, and they've been together for quite a while, and there's expectation there, and there is, although it doesn't feel like, the rest of it feels quite modern, and certainly the prose and the style, and from that perspective that feels quite modern, but yeah, in terms of the kind of historical context, it's really not.
I think I've worked out what it is that makes it feel like a thriller. And I think it's the fact that that if this relationship happens, it's going to be illicit and it's going to be secret and it's going to be...
Yeah.
And it could be dreadful for both of them.
Yeah.
So actually, it's not a thriller in terms of a murder or a thingy as it goes on, but it's a thriller in terms of an emotional thriller, I suppose.
Yeah. Yeah, because there could be really, there could be big consequences.
And yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Again, I want to say more, but I can't.
Not yet.
Because I don't want to spoil it.
My contribution to the non-spoilery section is the technology and the how they all communicate and the phones and the letters and
Letters and phones, yeah, that is quite...
I was fascinated by how the letters you just write to Chicago and you go and pick them up and then...
Aww.
at
I
a
was
hotel
quite fascinated by that. You're kind of like waiting for the messages to arrive and
sending meat and
Yeah.
sausages to
I think
a
it's
nice
rather
old
lovely,
woman.
actually.
yeah.
Oh no, that bit was great. She was sending back, and that's where this sounds terrible, but it's the flower that opens up, and that's the only phrase I can think of because she that's where she starts to blossom, where you can see a nice side to her, where she does that little gift giving, and she's not doing it because she's indifferent to it. She really cares. You think, but there is an indifference to it. But that's a. But just sending the sausages because it'll last a couple of weeks, like last a week or something like that, is just the gestures and the stupidity as well of money. And sorry, I'm
But I
moving
didn't
on to
think
money.
it dated it at all. I thought what it did was it made it a really fascinating sort of... You know how people are always going about, certain things date books? I think it added to the charm of it, and I think it added to the authenticity of the time.
It absolutely, I absolutely did, and I think it's very funny to complain about things dating books. Well, of everything set in a particular time.
Yeah.
It's bizarre, isn't it? It's ever so funny. No, I thought it was absolutely lovely, really lovely to read something where you just you absolutely felt the time that it was, and I think you do. You really do feel the time that it is. Just there's not loads of touches, but it's that feeling, that sense of when it is, and the way that they travel about, and just the little descriptions, and the ways that they do things, the phone and the post and the cars and the places they go. You just get that sense of just when it is in time. I thought it was really charming.
It's interesting because I think that's the other thing that I loved about it was not only do you feel that you get to know the place in the sense of time intricately, which you do, and bear in mind she's writing about it at the time, so she doesn't need to throw in what it looks like, but yet it's all there. But it's the same with people's characters and emotions, and you kind of at every level you're getting kind of a full picture, apart from when she purposefully doesn't want you to have one.
Yeah, and it's done with a really light touch as well.
Yeah, and what I found amazing was she wrote the basic story in 2 hours. I was like,
having
really?
104 degrees on chickenpox, mine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Do you know what really confused me? The opening line confused me because I thought she was in Germany. Because it says the lunch hour in the co-workers' cafeteria at Frankenberg's had reached its peak. And I was like,
where?
There's a place in Germany. Why is she in Frankfurt?
With the Grand Budapest Hotel again.
She's in Frankfurt. That's what it is. It's going, why is she in Frankfurt? And
She's supposed to be in New York.
I thought she was on a conference.
Okay, Gav. That seems a nice way to round off the non-spoiler section.
Let's take a break and talk about something else that we have been reading lately. Shall we go around the table?
She says, looking at me.
Yep.
Right, as I'm the only other one round the table. Right. I am currently reading, and I'm about a third of the way through, Karl Ove Knausgaard's A Death in the Family, subtitled My Struggle 1. And I'd heard lots and lots of people talking about this, raving about it. So I thought I would give it a go, as he has a new book out later in the year. And it's kind of a fictionalized autobiography, as I think is the easiest way of putting it. He's sort of writing about his own life, but slightly in a fictional manner. So where I am at the moment is he's a teenager, and he's talking about living with his parents. I think his parents are going through a divorce, and it's the tiny, minute little details that sounds mundane if I was to sort of say what he does, but actually it makes it all a bit more compelling. And I think I'm about completely hooked now on these. So there's 4 more after this that I'm probably going to end up maybe binging on. And so far so good. I'd really recommend reading them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There we go. He's going to be in...
Oh, yeah, I should say. This is one of Kate's books. It's a vintage book.
So I'm just about to say he's going to be in the UK. Next week, maybe.
Is it next week?
Yeah, for an event.
Well,
shameless plugging. Shameless.
Plug.
She made me read it.
Yeah, no, I didn't. As if I could make you read anything.
I think you probably could, Kate. not to get involved in your relationship. But...
What about you then, Simon? Moving on.
So the book that I am currently reading is Christos Tsiolkas's Merciless Gods, which is his first short story collection. There was a lot of shit in that was a bit too much for me. I really like The Slap. I really like Barracuda, and I really like Loaded, so I'm a big fan of his works anyway. I didn't think he could shock me anymore. I was wrong. Because in this collection, every single story has a vile character or 3 or 4, and they do and say horrible, despicable things, and you sit there and you're sort of... It's a bit like car crash reading. You know something horrendous is coming at some point.
Oh my God.
And some of it is really... hard to read.
I thought they were pretty vile in The Slap, to be honest. But
I would say this beats that. I think the title story alone beats that. It's a group of friends who they decide they're going to play a game where they're all quite drunk. They've done some drugs, and they decide they're going to play a game where they have to choose a word, and they each have to tell a story about that word. And the first word they choose is revenge. And the stories they start to tell, for some reason, they think it's better to start telling the nastier stories the more they can. But then one of them tells a story, and you know that friendship group will never be the same again. And then but then at the same time, some of it is incredibly touching. So there's one called Saturn Return, which is about a man taking his partner to go and see his dad for the last time because he's chosen to kill himself because he's got a terminal illness. And it properly got me, but then there's also an icky part to it. So even in the most sentimental moments, you can guarantee there's going to be something that's... I didn't find it uncomfortable, but I can imagine people who... it's not going to be any listeners to this podcast because we've been talking about Carol, but anyone who finds LGBT storylines that are a bit full-on won't like elements of that story. It's pretty full-on. But yeah, so no, I would highly recommend it. I love his writing anyway, and I think he's one of Australia's best writers because he does look at the subjects people don't want to talk about and sort of blatantly throw them in your face. So yeah, it's really, really good. So it's so good, I'm not reading them all in one go. I'm really breaking it up.
Interesting. Quick interjection. Do we think that the short story collection is making a comeback? Because I've seen a lot more literary short story collections lately. I think it is having a bit of a renaissance.
Mark
do you think
Haddon's
it's coming
got one
back, or do you just think it's a case that people are... I don't know. I've got a theory that it's a more tweetable version of a novel, so people can read them quite quickly and feel like they're getting a really good injection of fiction, but not...
I think they are. I think they're genuinely coming back. I've seen, there is American Housewife that's just come out
I've got to
from
read that. That's amazing.
Scribner. I've read that it's brilliant. Really, really good collection. There's the new Helen Oyeyemi.
Oh yeah, I've got that.
Yeah, there's that.
The Mark Haddon.
The new Mark Haddon, which is Jonathan Cape, so I know about that. There's there's like 3 just from Jonathan Cape in the first half of 2016. The Mark Haddon, The Pitifals, David Saloy, All That Man Is, and Fen.
She is shameless today.
I know, but
she's on commission.
But that's 3. That's 3 just from one imprint of one publisher.
From the Sci-Fi Corner.
I mean, there's got to be more.
The Sci-Fi bloke's got his hand up.
Yeah, sorry. Yes, Gav.
From a sci-fi point of view, Tor.com, which is the American version of sort of Pam Macmillan's sci-fi imprint, but they've created a website and then they did short stories. They now publish novellas, which are up to 250 words, but they do them in print and ebooks. But they bring out about 3 or 4 like £2-3 people expected to pay, which is really good value for 250 words of story. And like, there's a definite market. So 250 pages.
I was like, wow,
Not 2 tweets.
250 words for £3.
202 tweets worth for
Gaz
£2.
paid far too much.
Gav, I think we might need to have a chat.
I will say,
Economics.
short story-wise, one of the best books I read last year was The Redemption of Galen Pike, which was a really short story collection. And I think when authors do it right, I didn't used to feel this way. I always thought novels were the future. But I think short stories, if they're done right, can give you more than a novel.
There you go, you see?
Gav, what are you actually reading, though?
What am I actually reading? I'm reading a comic book. I'm reading Ms. Marvel, Generation Y.
Ah.
And, hold on. I'm going to get this wrong. It's basically Camilla Khan has always felt different, nerdy, and just strict parents, and now she has strange polymorphing superpowers. After rescuing her best friend, Bruno's brother, from a shady crew, she discovers Jersey City has a villain named the Inventor. Good thing City has a new hero. Camilla Khan is the all-new Ms. Marvel. And I'm reading...
You got me that for Christmas, didn't you?
Yeah, I got you the first one. This is the second one, this one. G. Gillo Wilson has been amazing. There's a brilliant, in the second sort of comic, actually the first one, comic 6, there's a scene in, I'm going to say mosque, but it's the Islamic masjid of Jersey City, and she's there with sort of her imam, and she's going, your parents are really worried, and I thought you were going to tell me off about boys and things. And he basically says, well, for the last 10 years I've been warning you about boys, so now you need somebody that's going to help you. And sort of, he doesn't know why she needs this chap, but he kind of says, you need somebody that's going to support you and mentor you. And then a couple of pages in, she then gets Wolverine of said comic book as the mentor. So, but she really plays with your expectations of, well, it's supposed to be controversial, not because she's a Muslim superhero, and it is, but she does it in the best sort of family-oriented way. You can see why family is really important. You can see her character and sort of a modern impression, if you like. And it's the most fun I've had for a comic book for quite a while, just because it's crazy and sweet, and she has responsibility and all the kind of things that you'd expect. So that's my current sort of reading.
Can I quickly interject and just say I saw Deadpool this weekend, and it's the best superhero film I've seen.
Yeah, we've seen it as well.
So funny.
So good.
I just loved every minute of it.
See, superheroes are coming back. Short stories and superheroes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Slightly possibly too many
done right.
superheroes, but when they're done well. And I just loved how Deadpool took the mickey out of itself and everything Marvel so well. I just thought it was brilliant.
Stick to Marvel, not DC, you'll be fine.
No,
Wait,
come on.
wait.
No.
Oh, God.
Batman,
Let's not-
come on.
let's
I think
not
Simon
fight
and I are
about
on the
this.
same side.
Yeah,
Come on, children.
We are. We're definitely on the same side.
Oh, okay.
Batman any day over the X-Men.
Oh, good Lord. There's room for everybody here.
Oh, here we go.
Except-
Diplomat, old
Except the
Neil.
Avengers.
Oh, God.
The Avengers is boring. Anyway, Kate, what are you
Come on, Kate,
reading
bring
right
it back.
Anyway, reeling it back in.
What are you
Come on,
reading?
everyone. So I am reading.
now? Is it a vintage book?
Good
by any
Lord.
chance?
No, it's not.
Penguin Random House?
Nope, it's not actually.
Five?
It's.
Is it YA?
I don't know. I'm not sure. It is YA, really. It depends who you talk to. I am reading Morning Star, which is the final book in the Red Rising trilogy by Liz Brown. So I have been waiting for this for about a year, since I read Golden Sun, which was the second book. I think these are absolutely fantastic books, to the point where I humiliated myself losing to Rob after we made up songs.
I'm still
made up
waiting for you to do a song for each of the books, though, Kate. You should just do it.
I
Lord.
blacked that entire experience out. Actually.
Yeah. But anyway, they're just extraordinary. I ended up having this great big Twitter conversation the other day about just how everyone should read these books. They're just so good. And I don't really understand why they're not just hugely, hugely famous with why everyone has not read them, like everyone went and read Twilight and the Hunger Games and, that kind of thing. Everyone. Possibly because they're actually a bit more literary and a bit harder to read and a bit longer and a bit more brutal. But I genuinely think they're fantastically written. But because this is the last one, I'm not going to say exactly what's been happening because there are 2 previous ones and I don't want to give away what's been going on. But they're just brilliant. They're just so good. And in the first one, the idea is that there's been kind of this whole big society, and there's someone who's from the lowest kind of class in society gets recruited to kind of effectively become like a god in order to challenge the order of society and kind of restore the proper order kind of thing. And it's just brilliant. It's just really, really good. So there we go. Everyone should read them.
I bought them just for I haven't read them yet, but I have bought them because of people like you that evangelise it. So I'm looking for. They're moving up. Just
genuinely brilliant. They're published by Hodder. They are really, really, really fantastic. They've been kind of. I mean, they've been brought out as I think. Brought out just as kind of adult novels, but they have kind of crossover to YA, and some people think of them as YA read by adults, but I think probably kind of for 15 upwards, you're fine. But yeah, I just think they're absolutely brilliant. So yeah, there we are.
Comes with an age warning, just like Carol.
Oh, seamless, Gav, seamless.
Yeah, there we are. But yeah, I think we can probably now say that we're going to talk a bit about Carol, but perhaps give away some spoilers in terms of some of the things that happen in the plot. So if you didn't read Carol yourself in preparation to listen to our discussion, then perhaps just skip this part and then come back at the end just to hear what we're going to
I'd say
next time.
Skip forward 10 minutes. If we're still wanging on, try 15, and then we'll probably have ended it by then.
That sounds about right. But either way, so I'd say the last
we always wang on.
The last minute, you'll be safe, and we'll say what we're going to talk about next time. So
that's a nice way of putting it, Kate.
Spoiler: there might be a film. Anyway.
Yeah, spoiler: it might be another adaptation because we're original.
We've moved forward, Deck. Anyway, I'll tell you later.
So back to Carol. I've been thinking about, while we were having that chat, these awful men. Sorry, guys.
Richard's the right one, isn't he?
Well,
is it Daniel?
I have a little anecdote to tell you. So my parents went to watch Carol. They like to go and see lots of films because they've got more spare time than I have. They like to go to the cinema quite a lot. And when they came out of the cinema, my mum actually couldn't speak to my dad. And she actually...
What's he done now?
Well, it wasn't so much him personally.
Did he fall asleep?
No.
Just men in general.
Yeah, it really was. She didn't speak to him again until they got home because it took her that long to just be less angry just with men.
You see, because I've not seen the film, I'm intrigued by how it differs, if it differs.
Not really. Okay. There are a few things in terms of the storytelling, but
I get the feeling that they make him out to be even more a villain than he is.
Not really.
Oh, that's what I got from the trailer.
No, I don't think
Richard
so.
Or Carol's husband?
Hodge. Or Richard.
Yeah.
I think there's not. I think actually Richard is probably about the same. I think, if anything, Hodge comes off worse in the book.
Yes, he does. Yeah, I would agree with that.
Oh. Sorry, that took a little moment with me there.
Yeah. But so blimey, I mean, really.
Yeah, in the film, Hodge seems more frustrated it hasn't worked.
Yeah.
So he seems to be a bit more. He's trying, but I think he takes it out a bit more on Abby, doesn't he, in the film?
Yeah.
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 Well, that's interesting. I'm going to definitely watch the film now.
Oh, it's so beautiful.
But that letter, when Richard sends that letter, I mean, there's one brilliant bit. This is one bit where I think gives a good example of how, we were talking about the red herrings earlier, but also there are sinister undertones and creepy undertones.
Oh, there definitely are.
And it was the one section where it's about Richard, and it's when he kind of has worked out what's going on.
Yeah.
And he says he stared at her, and for a moment beneath the anger she saw the fixed curiosity she'd seen before, as if he were watching a spectacle through a keyhole.
Yeah.
But she knew he was not so detached as that. On the contrary, she sensed that he was never so bound to her as now, never so determined not to give her up. It frightened her. She could imagine the determination transformed into hatred and to violence. And that is where I think Patricia Highsmith is so good, because in a paragraph, she can just, I mean, in the other stuff I read, like Deep Water, there is a psychopath at the heart of it, and she did always used to say she was very fond of her little psychopaths. And I think in it, that's kind of Richard's role, is actually she's kind of saying, well, that's the psychopath potentially in this scenario. But I actually like the fact that I think in Carol, every one of the main characters has a slightly psychopathic edge.
Do you know, that was just what I was going to say. I think everyone has the potential in this, actually, and it's just how close or how far away you are from the edge.
Yeah.
It's how much of a push you're being given by yourself or by your family or by your circumstances or by how tired you are.
Or just by your mood. Like, there's that moment with
exactly.
Therese and the film star, and they have that look with each other, and you just think, and Therese starts to think, oh, hang on a minute, this could be something interesting. And it is that thing of, when does love turn to... I mean, that's the other thing that she deals with really well. When does love turn to love? Well, when does lust turn to love, and when does love turn to hate?
Yeah.
And I think
that's why Carol has the gun with her.
Yeah.
But that's another point where, when she starts just mildly dropping in, oh, there's a gun in Carol's suitcase. And you're like, oh my God, she's going to kill someone. And then there's a detective chasing them, and I was like, she's going to kill him.
Yeah. But the potential's there.
What I loved about it.
But the potential's there for darkness, isn't it? That's kind of the whole...
Yeah.
Not to sidetrack the conversation, I was thinking of the female gaze of it all as well, which is what you're not used to, because the focus of the description is always on the lips, the legs, the things that you wouldn't normally have pointed out to you in such detail without making them. They are sexualized, but not in the.
It's not done in that masculine, sexualized way.
Yeah,
No offense to any straight males listening to this.
But it makes it's kind of uncomfortable.
It's a different.
Yeah, I'm here.
It's a different way of observing as opposed to necessarily sexualizing.
Yeah.
Which is, it's really interesting, actually. And I thought that, normally when you read a quote unquote detective novel and you've got an attractive woman, she sachets in and,
she's a femme fatale.
The kind of femme fatale type thing. And that could be Carol, actually, couldn't it? Where she's the older woman and she's sophisticated and, she's shapely, and that could be her. But actually you don't always see her like that. You see her when she's tired and when she's at home, and you see her with her guard down. And,
but also, I think
you see behind that veil.
But I think sometimes she's portrayed slightly as a predator.
Yeah,
It's
so
quite
but that's what I mean. You see both
sometimes-
sides.
Sometimes she's the married woman who's, predatorily stalking Therese, but actually is Therese the predator, but doing it in a very innocent and sweet. It's so clever. It's so cleverly done. But I think
Hence
what
the
Gav
Glenn
was saying
Close
about
comment.
exactly, but I think what you were saying that I thought was interesting, and again was spot on. I hadn't thought about it until you said it. Is that because it's observed through Therese's eyes, it's a lot about intuition rather than anything blatant. And I think again that's another reason why, Patricia Highsmith says herself, this all came from her actually having that interaction with a woman in a shop and just taking it further into a fiction. But I think there's so much intuition in it, and I think what's really clever is that in giving these sort of red herrings that may or may not lead to anything, and often don't at all, she's sort of toying with the reader, but in a very different way. Whereas with a psychopath, it's how much can I shock you? It's actually how much can you shock yourself, because your opinion or the way you think this is going to go is probably wrong. Like, I didn't expect it to have a happy ending.
Well,
or does it though?
Well, she says in her afterword that it was she specifically did it because all gay characters got persecuted. And
for the time, I think it stops at the right moment where we're left wondering.
It gives the option,
hope,
doesn't it?
It's the hope.
It gives the option
that something's going to happen. Yeah,
because I think you want a bit of a happy ending if you.
You want it, yes.
Because otherwise, it's all that. Because they're sort of frightened or scared of each other and what could happen if they're together and.
I mean, I was, unsurprisingly, I mean, this will shock no one, I was sobbing, absolutely sobbing at the end of the film, at the end of the book, absolutely sobbing my eyes out, just desperate. Even though I'd already seen the film when I read the book, I was still sobbing.
Well, the film plays a clever trick on you, and I won't say anything there to spoil the film, but the way they play with certain events in certain orders, I thought was very cleverly done. I think adds even more to the ending, actually.
Of course, speaking of thrillers, going back to sort of playing with the order, there is like the leaving of the letter. There's the detective's tapes.
Oh yeah,
there's
totally got it in there.
She totally puts those. Yeah. Are they going to be found out? And are they going to be found out? And what happens if they're
it's the
found
ticking
out?
clock sort of
yeah,
thing.
absolutely.
Yeah. But also it's the illicit nature of it all. These are two women who shouldn't be doing this sort of thing.
But they run off.
Society condemns it.
It's the potential consequences.
And they run off to do it as well. They leave. They go to some other place.
I kind of loved that though, and I wasn't expecting that at all. I wasn't expecting for it to go from like New York, the hustle and bustle, to a road trip. And it was kind of like an early Thelma and Louise.
Absolutely.
At each other.
And at which point did they choose?
No need for Brad Pitt.
No.
At which point did they choose to go from double to single beds? There was.
But you know what, as well, and it was really funny. But there was one point I was like, just have sex. But she does it in this really clever way, because you're reading, and the tension between them is so palpable. But also, this was where I found, for me, and I think this is why I think it's called Carol and not called Therese. Carol, I do think, is the main enigma in the book, because you can't quite work out until I think until really 2/3 of the way through how Carol really feels about Therese, and actually when she fully reveals how she feels at the very end of the book, you're kind of like, is it too late? You know what I mean? I thought that was really cleverly, really deftly done.
No, I think it's brilliant. I think she is the mystery, really. And Therese is trying to solve the mystery, because although we said earlier that Therese is kind of unreliable and she doesn't really know how she feels, and it takes her time to work that out herself because she's having to kind of work through it and think about it. Really, she's also working Carol out, and she is an enigma. It's wonderful, and her whole, Therese's whole being is kind of focused on Carol, and I think that's kind of, it's quite dangerous actually, and something that I thought was really quite fascinating as I was reading is also how that does change. It may be only the last kind of 30 pages where she suddenly realises that maybe her focus should be back on herself. And I thought that was really quite beautiful, where she's only able to properly kind of love or whatever once she respect her whole self as a person. Sorry, I'm getting. Oh my god, it's just such a good book.
I know what you mean.
It's so good.
It's got some very good messages.
It's so brilliant.
It sold a million copies for a reason. I think
there's a reason why. It's just I want to go and like press this into everyone's hands. I think it's so good. I think basically all women should read this book, and I kind of think all men should read this book as well, and just be like, right, here you go. Here's some information for you.
I think it should be like
a
secondary school text, you know.
Yeah.
Imagine then it'll put generations off it, but
well,
there's something about it because it's all about acceptance.
I don't put anyone off it by making anyone like study it.
Oh, teaching it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But I just.
But it's a book about acceptance, isn't it? Because the whole way through you're thinking, they need to accept, each other and the fact that they need to accept that they're, that they're lesbians or whatever. But actually what I think Patricia Highsmith is saying is that you just need to accept who you are and get on with it.
Yeah, and it's not even about having a label or anything. Yeah. It's just about being yourself and understanding yourself, and
it's two people falling in love.
Exactly. Women. And I think that's the really nice thing about that conversation that she has with Richard, where he just totally doesn't get it, and he's like, "Oh, I've heard of those people, kind of thing. Oh, that's weird," and he's so freaked out by it.
Kate loved Richard.
Oh, Richard. He had a really nice jumper in the film. I liked his jumper.
Okay.
He did. You'll love it.
That makes it fun.
You'll love his jumper. You'll be a big fan.
You know what? You can be a massive homophobe, but if you wear a lovely jumper, you're fine.
Yeah. But anyway, back to the conversation. But when they're having this bizarre conversation, and it's so odd that you can go from being totally understanding love between two people, but as soon as it's two people of the same gender, no, that's disgusting. But it's just the same. It's exactly the same thing.
But it even happens with Danny, doesn't it? Because Danny's kind of like, "Are you going to do it again?" And she's like, "No, I don't think so. I think it was just Carol. It's just a..." And some people, that, and I thought that was brilliant because in a way, Patricia Highsmith is looking at bisexuality there as well as
exactly,
and how fluid it all is. But what's interesting is that Danny says, "Oh well, if you're not going to, then it's fine. I can cope with that. Get in touch with me in the future." And I thought, well, even you're a knob.
Well, yeah, exactly. But I mean, he seemed like he was a bit more accepting, but he's like, "Oh, well, if it's a one-off, then."
But then actually, we say that he's the most accepting male in it, but he touches her up.
Ugh, I know. Even he
propositions her, and then actually ends up going, "Well, as long as you're not going to do it with any of the ladies."
Stalks her across the country.
I know, it's a bit weird, isn't it?
But this is again what I mean about. I think everyone's got that psychopathic edge because Abby, she's bonkers. I couldn't work out whether she was still... Well, I think she was still passionately in love with Carol, but also I think she quite fancied Therese as well. And I was like, well, she's a bit of a one. No, I did. I was
very good.
But that was the thing. But that's, again, what I think is so brilliant. You cannot work out the motivations. And it's interesting. Gillian Flynn says that Patricia Highsmith is one of her favourite writers.
Oh,
and I can see the influences completely, even with Carol, where it's
no one is one extreme or the other. It's all shades of grey. No, not 50, but you know what I mean. You can't have anyone who is just one thing or the other. No one is just good or just bad. It's always changing.
But even the element that that somebody has ratted on Carol by the end of it. But even then I didn't guess who it was. And when it was, I was like, oh no, that's awful. It was bloody Florence, wasn't it?
The position of trust, and then she... But then again, did she do it because she didn't like the relationship? Did she do it because she just wanted the money? Did she do it for... And the motivate... I think the motivations, as you were saying earlier, is you can't second-guess the motivations of the character. You can't second-guess the motivations of Carol. You can't... Because you think that Carol's aloof and toying and rebounding or looking for...
But naturally you try. That's what's so fascinating.
Yeah,
that was where I think it showed me a lot about myself as a reader, because I was sat there thinking, oh, right, okay, there's a gun, so somebody's got to die. Well, no, nobody has to die just because there's a gun in a suitcase. But it's the same with, oh, well, there's a detective, you know, the detective's going to die, you know, they want to cover it up. And I just found the way that I think she intentionally writes something that's quite open to lots of different interpretations, and goes, well, no, you're wrong anyway.
Oh, yeah.
And even the ending is left like that, like Rob was saying, it's left. I took it as a happy ending.
Oh, I did as well.
But there's a couple of pages.
I desperately hope so.
But the couple of pages left, you think, oh, that's it. And then you, like, in a couple of paragraphs, you go,
Yeah.
Please. You
Well,
know,
it's that last 2 paragraphs, isn't it, where you just like, oh, God, please. Please look up. Please look up and wave.
What are you going to do?
And she does. But I think that's
Carol
the thing I
raised
liked
her
about
hand
it was-
We're
slowly
such suckers,
and brushed
aren't
her hair
we?
back.
But you know what? That was what I thought was really nice in the afterword as well, was the fact that she wrote that because it has such hope and it is quite a positive ending, that's why she feels she's had... One, it resonated with so many readers because love is love regardless, but 2, because it did give people who were so used to reading about people like them being killed or something awful happening, never getting a happy
Judged.
ending.
Oh God, and still,
Yeah.
you know,
But
God.
it's a judging novel, but the characters you're judging are the Richards of the world, not Carol and...
Well, no, it's not just
Harry.
that. You're just judging them on who they are as a person. You're not judging them on who they love. It's about... I mean, I didn't give a monkeys who Carol or Therese were going to sleep with. But I did find myself... I wasn't judging them. I was sussing them out. But I think with Carol, that's purposeful. I think... Because I don't know, did they change the perspective in the film a bit? Isn't it more from Carol's point of view in the film? I thought somebody said that.
There are a couple of scenes where Therese isn't there, where it is Carol's scenes kind of thing.
She goes to the divorce lawyer. And
there's
that.
there's a scene where Carol's at the divorce lawyers, and there's a scene where like that they add in where Carol is with Harge.
Right.
As a party.
At a party and so on, which would have been happening when Therese isn't there, to kind of fill you in on what their life is like without Therese. But not really apart from that. Mostly it's still Therese. There are differences, but the differences are quite small, and I felt it was very true.
Well, I was going to say she it's about running away as well, of course. When she runs away from all and that's a theme we haven't kind of tapped into.
No, that's very true. Because actually, there's a lot about trying to escape and not really being able to.
It's like I left the job, so I didn't like the people, so I left those. I left the place I was going to be, so I left that, and I got another job, and I didn't want to go back. And there's that whole theme of, and then when she hold on, and when she finds herself, as Kate says, she's happy to go back because she's happy to be her where she is, and that's kind of a good message as well.
Yeah,
She even escapes Carol, doesn't she? Because Carol's kind of like... Well, no, it's Abby saying, will you speak to Carol again? And at one point, Therese says no. And there's one question, isn't there, where Carol says, and this got me, I was like, oh, God. Because Carol's going, I love you, do you love me? And then Therese goes, no, I don't think I do. And you just like, oh my... But it's because she does, but it's just different because of... And I love that as well, because it looks at how love changes and how... So, yeah.
No,
it's a good book, though. It is a very, very, very good book. I can see why people made the big fuss about it. And I have to say, I mean, I love Deepwater and will love it forever because I think it's my first Highsmith. So I always think your first book with an author that you love will stay with you anyway. But I think this is quite something. But I like her darker edges, but I loved how this was laced with so much hope.
I genuinely thought that this was just absolutely beautiful. Normally I wouldn't necessarily choose to see a film first. I know I did it with Gatsby because I'm a particular fan of his oeuvre. So, I was worried that if I read the book, I'd like the book too much and then the film would be poo in comparison. So that's why I did it for that. But with this, it just happened to be that way round. And luckily, both things were equally luminous and beautiful in their own ways. I just thought the way it was written was absolutely stunning. I thought the message or messages in the book were really beautiful, and I was really, really moved, genuinely really, really moved. And, what I said earlier about wanting to go and press it into people's hands, I really do. I just think it's so lovely and beautiful, but also, exciting. And yeah, as we've said, there are bits of thriller in there, and there are kind of creepy, horrid characters, and there are kind of fascinating, multifaceted people, and really interesting portraits of American life, and all sorts of stuff in there. And yeah, bits that just kind of these really surprising, just little vignettes, like kind of where they let go of the kite and it flies away, and she's shocked that Richard would do that with something he's made, and just these little moments even.
So I think what Simon and you are saying is you would recommend this,
yes,
to be read as a book group.
I would definitely recommend it. I would have a slight caveat that it is a slow burner.
Yes.
But it's totally worth it, because I think I worry that if people come to Carol having read a lot of Highsmith's other books, they might be like, oh, well, this is a bit slow. It must be because she was writing as a lesbian. But do you know what I mean? And I'm a little bit worried that some people might do that. Whereas, you know what I mean? I think, and that was the bit that, because I'd read Deepwater, which actually, to be fair, it's kind of a slow burner in parts as well. But I think just go with it, and you will be totally hooked. But not because it's a patent or other, just because you'll be hooked by the trying to work out all of the enigmas behind each character. I think is fun, kind of fascinating. So yeah, I would highly recommend it.
I also would as well. I do slightly wish I'd done it the other way around and read the book first, but I think even so, I would still highly recommend it as well.
And Gav?
I would highly recommend it with the caveat that if it really annoys you in the beginning, keep reading, because it's not. I don't know. I didn't find it a slow burn. I found it a grind until you get to sort of under their skin a bit, because they just grate the characters grate a lot to start with, and it's worth knowing them better and why they're grating at you. It's probably your reaction to them rather than them. You see what I mean? But yes, definitely absolutely worth discussing and worth reading, and worth Oscars or BAFTAs or something.
I definitely recommend it for a book group.
Yeah, I think there's a lot there to talk about. I think it's really, really interesting.
We've managed.
Yeah, and thank you everybody for joining in with that. That was really interesting. We've not done that for a while, so I'm glad that was a success. And I think is that possibly a first where we've all found a book that we actually enjoyed?
The first one was another one that none of us necessarily expected that we would all like, and that was A Month in the Country.
Oh yes, that's right. Yes, we did. We all enjoyed that.
Well, we all agreed on The Martian, didn't we?
Well, we all agreed on
that. We hated that, yeah.
But that was something quite different. Right, okay. So hopefully people who've now rejoined us. So this is the last minute. So we're going to announce what we are reading next.
Dun, 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 do you want me to do this because I sort of accidentally made it my choice. So, going with a theme for Rob and Kate of having seen the film first, I didn't realise this when I suggested it, so I feel slightly bad. But the book that we are going to read for next month's episode is The Revenant by Michael Punk. Is it Punk or Punky?
Punky.
Okay, there we go. It's that. And just to give people an insight, because I still don't even know what the film's about. I just thought after it won awards at the BAFTAs, I was like, oh, I want to watch it.
I have the blurb if you want it.
I've got it in front of me. I actually, my fingers became unlazy, and I actually did Google it. So it says, The Revenant is based on a true story, an epic tale of revenge set in the Rocky Mountains. The trappers of the Rocky Mountain Fur Company live a brutal frontier life. Hugh Glass is one of the most respected men in the company, an experienced frontiersman and an expert tracker. But when a scouting mission puts Glass face to face with a grizzly bear, he is viciously mauled and not expected to survive. 2 men from the company are ordered to remain with him until his inevitable death. But, fearing an imminent attack, they abandon Glass, stripping of his prize rifle and hatchet. As Glass watches the men flee, he is driven to survive by one all-consuming desire, revenge. With a shocking grit and determination, he sets out on a 3,000-mile journey across the harsh American frontier to seek revenge on the men who betrayed him. And reading all of that, and here seeing it's about revenge, totally going to be my favourite book of the year.
Also, it's set in 1823, just to give it some sort of context.
Oh Oh yeah, sorry, I missed that bit. It's the blurb. So
not now.
But it's not there last week, but it could be because I'm sure there's parts of the world where it still could be.
Yeah.
Anyway, send a tweet. I've been mauled. Hashtag grizzly bear. So anyway, sorry. Got off
Hashtag help.
We get the wrong sort of attention.
Hashtag SOS, not the ABBA song. Right, so anyway, we're going to read that for next month.
Excellent. I'm looking forward to it.
And I get to host. Hooray!
Yay!
Woohoo.
So we're not putting it out to vote any more people, soz.
We might do that next time, though. Who knows?
No.
We're lucky.
It'll be film adaptations now until Christmas.
It's going to be.
But yeah, I quite like reading books that are a bit older, I think.
Well, this is from 1992.
I wasn't worried about upsetting Patricia Highsmith if I didn't like it.
1992, I think this one's from. So it's an oldie.
But hasn't it only been recently republished here for the first time?
And it's from 1823, so there shouldn't be any mobile phones.
I like the fact that it's based on a true story as well. Well, but then I suppose Carol was in a weird way. Anyway, that's what we're reading next.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Simon. So thank you all for listening. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Gav. Thank you, Simon. And we'll be back next month to discuss The Revenant.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.